I do want to thank the Birke Symposium Committee. This is a lot, right? That's a lot to put together. It is a very complicated group of things. I specifically want to thank Jack. I mean, as he said, I have actually been back in West Virginia for a decade. So for a decade, I've actually worked here at Marshall University for 10 years in 2023, which is insanity. And in that time, I've produced 70 productions, produced and directed 70 different plays. I've worked at 12 different arts and education organizations. I have taught hundreds of classes, workshops. I am the artistic director for 2 theater companies and a guest director for 4 others. And so it might be possible that because I have dedicated my entire life to the theater, that I see elements of theatricality in places where they don't typically happen, right? So politics is probably one of the best ones, easiest ones for people to recognize. You'll notice that politicians have actions, objectives, tactics. Those are acting methodologies. So I would keep that in mind the next time you go vote. Also, we know that in politics there are costuming requirements, right? They all wear the little American flag pin, and if they don't wear it, they hate America. But if they do love it, they love America. We also know there's a color palette that the president is restricted to because Obama had the audacity to wear a tan suit, and people lost their minds. Also, religious ceremonies. Religion is rife with theatricality. The best thing, because I'm a director and a professor, I really like that everyone does their homework before they go to church. Everybody knows the lines. Everybody knows the music, right? There's blocking. If you're Catholic, there's blocking. Standing up, sitting down, kneeling, and you all know when it happens. Like, people learn the blocking and the music in preparation for church. I actually was too theatrical at church one time. I had a student who invited me to church with her one time. And so I went. I was like, of course I'll come with you. And there was this beautiful choir. I mean, probably one of the most beautiful choirs I've ever heard in my life, y'all. They were hitting harmonies I didn't know existed. They were killing it. At the end, we're all seated kindly and quietly in church. And at the end, I shoot up and I'm like, yes! Everyone else in the entire congregation is seated quietly. And everyone looks straight at me, and I was like, oh, this is my first time here, and like sat down. It was a nightmare. If you want to see some of the best acting in these United States, customer service is your best bet. Customer service. Ask a waitress with a 10-top of high schoolers on prom night. If that girl has a smile on her face and is not physically fighting a high schooler out in the parking lot, that girl is acting. But I will say, probably the most obvious from my perspective is our comparison to athletics. I chose specifically to host this lecture in the Rec Center because the Rec Center stands as a monument to athletics. Every day, hundreds of people from our community, our students, staff, faculty, come here to participate in athletics in one way or another. I would kill to have this kind of traffic in the theater. Kill! But we yearn for a bygone era when audiences flocked to the theater in their Sunday best. Because this place, whew, no thank you. You work in theater long enough, you can work any walkie-talkie. What was I talking to you about? Athletics. Oh, okay. So, this place is a living, breathing monument to athletics, right? Not like us. I can't imagine, I actually don't know of a single performing arts center that has made the kind of investment that's been made here. But with good reason. The performing arts aren't fiscally viable. We have a bad reputation as being elitist and exclusive, and that's not entirely incorrect. And we have taken our collective energy and given it to the top 1% of people in our industry, to the detriment of the 99% of us in community, educational, and regional theater. But here's the thing. Despite the disparity between performing arts and athletics in profitability and popularity, athletics and the performing arts are exactly the same. We share the same performance spaces. That stadium back there, that is a thrust arena, meaning that the stage or field thrusts into the audience. The audience is on three sides. It is no different than City Dionysia. When 5,000 years ago, when 5,000 BCE, 5,000 years ago, Jesus, cut that out. In 5,000 BC, tens of thousands of Grecians went to view the most significant plays in history, plays we produce today. The Henderson Center is an arena stage, meaning that all four sides, the audience is all around you, and has some of the most advanced lighting and sound equipment in Huntington. This room right here. You can call it a fitness studio all you want, but I know any room that has sprung floors and floor-to-ceiling mirrors, that's a dance studio. We also have the same exact language. Athletes have practice. Actors have rehearsal. Athletes have conditioning. Dancers have ballet class. If you've never taken a ballet class, you are blissfully unaware that there are these teeny tiny little muscles that exist all over your body, like in your toes. It's so crazy. There's no more humbling experience in the performing arts than a ballet class. So not only do we have those kinds of similarities, we also, in addition to our language, right, we also have the exact same objectives and outcomes. Teamwork. We call it collaboration. Sportsmanship. How do you pick yourself up and dust yourself off and learn from your mistakes and go play the next game or go get the next role? Community engagement, social and interpersonal skills, emotional and physical well-being. All of these objectives are accomplished through the performance-based mediums of athletics and the performing arts. We also have the same exact success rate. 1%. That's our success rate. 1% of student athletes will go on to play professionally. The same is true for student performers. So, if we have the same spaces, if we have the same language, if we have the same objectives, outcomes, and success rate, what are we getting wrong? More importantly, what are they getting right? So I'll start first with our respective responses to the COVID pandemic. Unsurprisingly, given all of the similarities I've told you about, we had pretty much the same responses. When it was clear that we were all going to have to wear masks so we all didn't die, we in the theater incorporated, hello, hi. We in the theater incorporated masks into our costuming design. So for all of 2020 and 2021, I just did a bunch of plays about animals. Truthfully, I figured they would have their don't get COVID mask, right? And then I would do a whole other mask on top of that COVID mask, which was cool, until you realize that all the actors sound like they're in a hostage situation. Like the whole time they sounded like this, and you had no idea what people were saying. But we tried it. Then we moved on to puppetry. We did a lot of large-scale puppetry. I did a puppetry version of Romeo and Juliet. It's like the only way I could take that play seriously. But the same is true for athletics teams. They went to athletic clothing manufacturers and said, we need to collaborate to come up with masks that are specific for athletes and specific to different sports. Did the same thing. When gatherings went down from 500 people to 100 people to 10 people. Yeah, come in. Oh, hi. Welcome. When gatherings kept dwindling down, right? Athletics teams released all of their filmed games and commentary across platforms, right? They had all of these decades of games that they had filmed. They were like, here, you guys, watch them. In theater, we had the exact same access. Generations of Broadway plays. Treasure trove from the New York Public Library archives, from the Kennedy Center. We had everything they had. And you would think in theater's darkest day, in contemporary history in America, we would open it up You can't come see the theater? We got billions of them online. They could have done that, but they didn't. Why would we not access the internet? Well, the truth is, because producers, publishing companies, and unions couldn't figure it out. Couldn't negotiate amongst themselves how to pay cast and crew. Couldn't negotiate amongst themselves how to pay composers and playwrights. Couldn't figure out how to count views across streaming platforms and tabulate residuals. Couldn't figure it out. The best and brightest minds in the theater, with the most money, access, power, and technology, and these rubes couldn't figure it out. It's actually unimaginable. So because the top 1% of our industry couldn't figure it out, millions of people who will never have the money to travel to New York, who will never have the money to pay for a Broadway ticket, will now never even get the privilege of watching it online. It's mind-bending. As you can see, I've gotten way off track. No, I haven't. I really haven't. So many people came in that I was like, you need to figure out where you are in these papers. Rubes, I see rubes, I know where we are. I wrote it in big letters, rubes. And so because of them, like I said, tons of people who will never have that opportunity now will never see it online. The interesting part about that is, remarkably few people will ever be denied access to a televised NBA game. Everyone in here seen a televised NBA game?
Reluctant.
Exactly, because sports are accessible. The arts aren't. And this brings me to the central point of all of this. We have billed ourselves as empathetic, as an industry. We believe we are radically empathetic. We're open to all. We're so welcoming, unless you're poor or unless you don't live in New York. Because the least empathetic thing I can think of is knowing that 99% of your industry is starving and you're sitting at a full table complaining about the food. You know what would be radically empathetic? Giving everyone access to the theater, because we have the technology to do so. I know, unbelievable idea, but lest you think this problem is solved, you should know that the gatekeeping isn't just Broadway. We're also gatekeeping community, regional, and educational theaters, because they won't let us stream our productions. We believed blindly for years streaming a play was impossible. We believed that because publishing companies told us that. Until the pandemic. I know this because on March 9th of 2020, I cast my production of A Long Day's Journey into Night at the Albin. On March 12th, Broadway went dark and would stay dark for 18 months. And on March 15th, the entire country shut down. And I found myself saying, why is it that we can't stream our productions again? So I sent my first email to Dramatists. If you don't know what Dramatists is, it's one of the 3 major play publishing companies, asking for the streaming rights to A Long Day's Journey into Night. And by March 20th, I had the streaming rights to A Long Day's Journey by Eugene O'Neill. Because it turns out, streaming rights were never impossible. All it took was the near destruction of our entire industry for us to have access to them. And lest you think that we have solved all of this, you should know that for Appalachians who live in isolated areas who don't have gas money or a car or can't spend the $20 per ticket for a family of 4 to go see the theater, even they are not allowed to watch streaming productions in their own community. I don't really know what the answer to a lot of that is, other than sports are accessible, the performing arts aren't. And also, publishing companies have the nuts to include this on their websites about streaming. This is verbatim what it says. We look forward to the day when streamed performances are no longer necessary to support our customers engaging in this great art form. They are trying to unring the bell. That's what they're trying to do. See, because the NCAA wouldn't be so stupid as to suggest they would stop televising their games, because sports are accessible. And if we are so desperate to get our live audiences back, might I suggest that we stop charging $12 for a glass of wine and then not allowing our audiences to bring it inside the theater? That might be a good start. Because what it does is it's symbolic of our spaces being sacred, of our spaces being exclusive. I think personally the mess we'd have to clean up is worth it if it means we'll have people in the theater. Hopefully. The hope is that they'll come back if we're more welcoming. You also might be surprised to know that the majority of the general public believes that there is a dress code to attend the theater. I know this because I've worked at every single box office and every single theater I've ever worked at. And every time a season announcement would happen or we'd do a symphony collaboration, we would get countless phone calls. What should I wear? What's your all's dress code? None of them had dress codes. No theater I've ever worked at has had a dress code. But could it be instead that our messaging is getting lost through the sea of elitism we have put in the way of theater performance? There was an article about 5 or 6 years ago from some snobby lady at the New York Post. And the name of the article was, "For God's Sake, Stop Dressing Like a Slob." And the whole article, an article is being generous. It was like 5 paragraphs. I have no idea how much they paid her, but it was too much. Anyway, so she spends 5 paragraphs essentially saying audience members shouldn't wear crop tops to the theater. Like, she would be surprised now, honey. That's all the kind of shirts y'all wear. They only sell crop tops now. That they shouldn't wear Crocs to the theater, shouldn't wear band t-shirts to the theater. Exactly. Let me tell you, for the price of a Broadway ticket, you're lucky they're coming with clothes on. They couldn't afford another outfit. We're talking 200, 300, 400. I mean, if you're talking about good seats, we're talking numbers in the thousands. And these people have the nuts to talk about what you're wearing. They should be talking about what they're charging. Because again, when you go to a basketball game, you get to eat the food you bought in the seat you paid for, wearing whatever the hell you want. Because sports are accessible. We also have a lot to learn from our athletic counterparts, but the best thing we could learn is to stop making the argument that we are useful to traditional athletics. Academics. You were like, I saw Eliza go, athletics. Academics. So, because for a long time, what we've done is we have harped and hollered that the performing arts are necessary and supportive to the 3 R's. That's reading, writing, and arithmetic. That we are supportive of those, that the things that we do support the real academics. The problem with that argument is that we justify our existence in education as secondary, rather than a primary, unique modality that features academic outcomes that aren't seen anywhere else in education. With all due respect to math, there is no math class right now that is teaching empathy. It's not in the equations. There's no chemical reaction that creates a better sense of being intuitive or having self-confidence. The performing arts teaches that. And the arts are the only subject to be challenged to show our academic usefulness as a way to justify our inclusion in education. For example, if we asked a physical education class to demonstrate their usefulness in academics, they likely couldn't demonstrate it and would thus fail. But you won't hear a single person saying we should cut physical education. Not one. Schools accept that physical education is good for kids. whatever positive educational or academic side effects come out of sports, doesn't really matter. Schools believe sports are good, and thus athletic and physical education continues and is well funded in public schools. We should be making the same argument with the arts. We should be making the argument that the arts are for everyone. That's the whole point of all of this nonsense. Everything I've said to you all boils down to we should do what we've been saying we've been doing. We've said we are the most welcoming. We have said everyone belongs here. But everything we've done has said the exact opposite, has been lip service to an art form so that you all feel included. You're not actually included, but we're really concerned and make sure you want to feel that way. So, we should be advocating for cheaper, easier, and more abundant streaming rights. And we in educational, community, and regional theater, we need to start renegotiating. There is more power in educational, community, and regional theater. There's more money than every single Broadway show combined. Their performance rights they pay every year, sometimes up to $50,000 a week in performance rights. Can't even touch it with all the community, regional, and educational theaters that exist in the United States. We're talking well over 8,000. We beat them out every time in the amount of money we pay. And we have not used our collective power the way that they've used theirs. We can learn a lot from the top 1%. We should start renegotiating today for actors and audiences alike. Because streaming makes performing arts available and accessible to everyone. We should be welcoming our audiences to come as they are and enjoy the snacks we sold them in their seat, because that welcomes everyone. And we should start treating arts education as education, not supportive of, not making sure everyone learns math. I mean, that's important. I didn't really ever learn that much math, so I'm not speaking from experience. Math is important to some other people. It's not me. We should stop making that argument. We should stop making that argument because we're leaving ourselves open for someone to prove us wrong. For someone to come in and go, hi, actually, it turns out people don't have better reading skills when they're in the theater. We just gave someone a reason to cut our program because we've made the argument that we help all of those other things. Because arts education should be for everyone. You have to make it accessible. You have to make it welcoming. And you have to make it educational. That, I think, is the way forward for the arts. So, thank you and go Herd. Thoughts?